So along with landscape photography, which we talked about in last week's video, I've also been shooting a lot of portraits recently. And that's because the weather has been really interesting for portraits. Whether it's a beautiful sunset where you've got beautiful light and you can get some really, really nice portraits, or it's kind of cloudy. It's not so nice, but that can make for an interesting portrait in and of itself. The light has been... It's been interesting, should we put it that way? But it's given me a lot of opportunities to really think about how I approach portrait photography and some specific things I've learned along the way. So we're going to go through kind of 3 tips. Now I say kind of because they are 3. They are 3, there's no getting away from that. But they're kind of big, they're quite chunky tips. So, you know, I could have spun this out into 5, but I thought, no, let's keep it as 3. Let's keep it as 3, let's get into it. It's Tutorial Tuesday. Welcome back to Tutorial Tuesday, where each and every Tuesday we bring you a brand new, fresh photography tutorial. Who knows what? I'm getting crazy with them. And that's just fine. Like I say, we're going to go through 3 kind of chunky tips about approaching portrait photography and how you can get the best out of your portraits. And the thing we're going to start with, which I think is probably the most important part of portrait photography, is actually tip number 1, make your model, make your subject comfortable. Now this is huge. If you can build a rapport of really any kind with your subject while you're taking photos, you are absolutely 100% going to get better photos. That's just how it is. Now this does go for professional models. So if you have the opportunity to shoot with professional models, this still works. But most of us, certainly me, I will go and shoot with friends and I will either get them to take photos of me, I'll take photos of them. Building a nice rapport, getting everyone comfortable is such a huge part of it. And there are very specific things you can do to make this just a lot easier. The number one thing that I do when I'm working with a model, when I'm working with a friend, whatever it might be, is I just start cracking jokes. And I mean silly jokes. I mean stuff that is funny, I guess, but it's, you know, me being really silly, just messing around, really breaking the ice, but also making them feel like it's not too serious and horrible and scary because I'm being silly, so they can be silly. And if they feel silly posing, then it is kind of fine because I'm being silly. That's such a huge thing that works every single time. Laughing in particular is just such a great way to put people at ease. There are other things that you can do though. So for example, you can experiment a little bit with eye contact, whether you want them looking directly at the camera or whether you want them looking somewhere else. Now you can judge this a little bit with the person you're working with, but some people just are not very comfortable looking directly at the camera. Some people just feel much more at ease looking somewhere else. So play around with it a little bit. Give loads of direction. Really, really go to town on telling them what you want them to do. You know, look over there. I put my hand up, look at my hand, look up at the sky, maybe look down, look over there, look behind you, whatever it is. Giving them direction really takes the pressure off them to think up what they should be doing. You're kind of telling them where to look. And then you can add in, right now, look at the camera or look at me. And you can really help put them at ease. And if you want that eye contact shot, you can get it. Eye contact is an interesting thing actually because it's worth kind of experimenting a little bit. Some shots, like this one of me, which I do appreciate, it's pretty intense. I really, really like it, and the stare is quite intense. And so eye contact can be really powerful, but then not having eye contact can also be quite a powerful choice as well. So you can actually come away with some beautiful photos in different ways like that, and you're helping to put your subject at ease. Another great tip for this is to give them something to do with their hands. So that can be anything from fiddling with their watch. That's something that I do a lot when people take photos of me, tying up their hair, fiddling with a bit of clothing can be huge, but giving them something to do with their hands really takes away the pressure of that feeling of where should my hands be? By my side, in front of me, and then you start to look weird, and then you start to feel uncomfortable. That comes through in the photo. So give them something to do with their hands. That really, really helps. But ultimately, constant feedback with your subject is going to make such a huge difference. Being light, being friendly, being fun, giving them that direction, and constantly telling them that looks great, great job, this is fantastic. It's going to go a long way, and you're going to get much better photos. Something else to be aware of with this is just your surroundings. Now that goes for 2 kind of parts of this. Your background, what is in the background of the shot, how blurred is it, how much is it going to be in frame, is it distracting, all that kind of stuff. And then also how many people are around. Some models, some subjects won't mind in the slightest if there's loads of people around, and some will feel very self-conscious if there's lots of people around. And if you are working with someone like that, It's not a problem. You just need to be aware of it, and you need to try and move somewhere where maybe there's less, intense crowds around that's going to make them feel uncomfortable. Now that's a big first tip, a big chunky one. The second tip really just goes hand in hand with this, which is just to keep snapping photos, right? Just constantly be taking photos while you're getting them to do things, tie up their hair, fiddle with their watch, bit of clothing, all that stuff. Look over there, look over here, look over here. Because when you get back, you'll find that some of them are, I don't know, good, but some of them are great. And you'll probably find that some of the ones where it's a little bit more of a genuine, maybe a laugh, a smile, a slightly more candid moment, maybe less posed, will actually look better. And you'll only capture those if you just keep snapping away. So just keep snapping those photos. That'll also help your subject get comfortable with the fact that you're taking photos, as opposed to, taking a long time and then reviewing the photo and then taking a long time to take another one, set up the pose, take it, review it. I love just snapping away. We can look at them later. I'll check them to make sure that I'm not, completely getting the exposure wrong, or it's just blurry or whatever like that. But it is worth just snapping, especially if you're working with someone who you're helping to come out of their shell. Now, the third tip can make or break a portrait photo, and that's to be very aware of the light. The light is what's going to give you sharpness. It's what's going to give you kind of the tone, the mood of the image. And it's just so important. So for example, a nice sunset is a great time to go out and take some portrait photos, but you might want to be aware that you don't necessarily want your subject facing the sun. They'll be nicely lit up with a golden light, but it'll be a very intense directional light straight on their face, which ends up looking a little bit flat. If you turn them to the side, have that directional light off to one side, so they're side on with the sun, you'll get much more interesting light. You'll get some nice shadows on there, some interesting contrast, tells a bit more of a story, a little bit more moody, a little bit more drama in the photo, and that can be fantastic. This also goes hand in hand a little bit with the first tip. You don't want your subject to be staring into a bright light that makes them feel like they want to squint, makes them uncomfortable. That's no good. You're going to end up having worse photos. It's going to come across in those photos. So turn them slightly away from the light, get some interesting shadows, make it a little bit dramatic and moody. Cloudy days are also fantastic for portraits because you can actually take photos pretty much wherever. The cloud acts like a big softbox in the sky, so you get a really nice diffuse soft light, and it looks fantastic. Sometimes when you look out the window and it's a cloudy, overcast day, it doesn't feel like it's the best day to go out and take photos. But the truth is, some of my favorite portrait shoots have actually been on very cloudy days when it maybe doesn't feel like it'd be the best, but they're so good. If it is extremely sunny and you are shooting in the daytime, so not at sunset, you can head out to places where there's a bit more shade. Forests are fantastic for this, really just anywhere with some trees. You'll get dappled light coming through the trees, but otherwise shade, which first of all makes it more comfortable for your subject's eyes, but second of all makes it much better for the overall photo. They look fantastic, but anywhere where there's shade, maybe in the shade of a building, if you're in a city, just move out of the sun, and you're going to be able to capture some great portraits. For me, a great portrait does really come down to, yes, composition, yes, lighting, absolutely. We talked about that a little bit. And yes, getting the right settings, the right focal length, aperture, that kind of thing, what creative look you want for the photo. But the main thing that is going to make or break a portrait photo is your subject and your actual relationship, your kind of connection with them. If they are uncomfortable in any way, it will come through on the photo, unless they're like, really top professional model. So if you can kind of break the ice, make them comfortable, make them laugh, get a good rapport going, that is going to give you such good photos. And that works for, like I say, models, friends, whoever it might be. If you're going to do headshots at a company, this is a great way to make people feel a little bit more comfortable, get some real smiles instead of kind of fake, awkward, uncomfortable smiles that just don't work very well. So make sure you are absolutely focused, no pun intended, or maybe it was intended, on your subject. So those are 3 tips about how to get better portrait photos, but I'd love to hear if you have any other tips. First of all, to make your subject more comfortable, and anything else really to do with portraits, let me know down in the comments, because it's always super interesting. I feel like I learned something. We're all having a good time. I'm a big fan. You can check out a list of different equipment we use for these photos, and of course this video down in the description where you can go and check them all out for yourself. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well, because there's new content all the time. Every week without fail, there's always something new. I will see you in the next video, but until then, as always, thanks for watching.